MAX Snow Plow. Not to go too fast, I didn't want to heat it up. Okay, now I gotta get the one on the other side, let this guy cool. I'm welding in. This is, hopefully you hit it in the center of this. This is where the adjustment for the tilt angle, you know, the springs want to pull it back, and so this will limit, so I'll be able to adjust its baseline setting. It'll still be able to go forward against the springs, but this will limit how much the springs pull it back. So there's an adjustment that'll hit right in the middle of that vicinity. And the two screw holes here allow me to attach a bumper in there, so I don't have rattling metal to metal contact. Okay, I got the flag mounts on. There's the, you don't actually have flags on the end, it just allows you to see where the ends of your plow are. So anyway, I had to make some mounts for that. I didn't want to weld anything directly to the blade itself, so I found a piece of stainless tubing that was just the right size to fit over these. This hasn't been tightened up. Well, can't see it there. So I made some stainless, put a nut down the bottom of it to close the end of it, just welded that in, then welded it to just a little small plate that goes to 3/8 inch bolt holds it. And similar at the top, except that it's a through hole. Finished up the welds here. My boys were working on this the other day. We didn't have much time up here, so they kind of got started on it, and I finished up the welds today. Getting ready to paint this whole gizmo on top. Paint the top and sides of the bucket, and then later on I'll work on the inside. Having a paint-a-thon, one of the aspects of a project that I find the least rewarding, I guess be one way to say it, the most cumbersome, is the prepping and painting. So I've been preparing. You see little pieces everywhere around here. Most of them have got the final coat of black. This angle piece here is pretty, takes a lot of prep work. Some of the inside corners that I couldn't get good welds in, like in here, I filled them in with some glazing putty because I didn't want to leave voids in there. Okay, that's it for the heating. Now I'll tape off a couple things I want to tape off, and we'll hit it with some primer. One of the things I do with the paints is I put them in my stationary tub over there, in a little bucket, and I put hot water down there with it, and I keep checking them and keeping them warm. It's about 40 degrees in here. I've warmed it up to 40 degrees, the pole barn, so paint doesn't like that too much. So if you can get the paint warm, get the substance warm, then it's going to do a lot better. Obviously, be sure to shake it up really good. Now here, I can't really, I don't want the stuff to waste everywhere, so I'm going to get a backdrop. Okay. That's right, this one's a great primer.
Yeah, that does it.
Getting the bottom of this cleaned off, scraped it down, washed it down, let it dry. Then after that, ran one of the quick strip discs on it. These are the ones, the Home Depot ones. Used a grinder to touch up this edge here. Then used a wire wheel. These are great. Obviously, wear good eye protection. Those little wires go flying off. With goggles on, even with goggles on, I've had these things fly off and actually embed in my cheeks. So a full face mask is a good idea. And this, after cleaning it as best I could, I used the Rust-Oleum rust reformer. Yeah, I like this. It seems to work pretty good. I've had some parts that on vehicles and things that are just too rusty to get all the way down to bare metal. So you do the best you can, clean it up. Still got some rust on, which is what we had, this situation on the bottom here. You know, you get all the nicks and everything in there and the rust gets penetrated into it. You can't grind them all the way out, so. Well, it's ready for, I'm gonna clean it with some alcohol, scrub it a little more, put it on the rust reformer. So you didn't get all the rust spots off. Yeah, I could have stayed here another hour. Even then, there would have been spots that are too low. Yeah, the snowplow parts are drying. The bucket's been all painted, taken care of. I've got pieces all over the place. Many of them are probably sufficiently dry, but I didn't really want to touch them for a few days. Kind of working on another aspect of the snowplow tractor renovation, and that's figuring out a cover for it. Alright, here we've got the angle adjust front part. Now I haven't greased it yet, and I've kind of tightened down the bolt so it's a little stiff. But anyway, I just wanted to test it again. I put chair sliders on this piece underneath here, so no matter how much force is on that, it'll still be riding on those UHMW chair sliders. And then it has, this would be for 0 degrees. Again, it's a little tight first times in. Now we'll be greasing those. The blade, got the UHMW on there now. So I use the steel plate in front of it. Increase its rigidity. I can use the square holes in it for the carriage bolts. To prevent this thing from flexing, prevent this material from breaking. I did extend it out past the ends about 1 inch. Often when we're doing a metalworking project, we think only in metal. But occasionally, there are times when it's good to have a mixed media. Here I've actually decided, got some maple piece. I needed a spacer. I was going to put nuts in there, but it turns out that causes some other problems, so I decided to go with spacers. And rather than fabricating a metal spacer that's a little over 1 inch and 1/8, I had some oak, or excuse me, this is maple, hard maple. It's in that size. Much easier to bore the hole. And now I'm just putting some preservative on it before I incorporate it in the project. A little sneak preview today on the snowplow mechanism. Mostly done. I've got a few more things to do, but let me kind of walk you through it real quickly. So one of the intents, I wanted this thing to be able to get on my bucket, so I wouldn't have to take my bucket off. Bucket's a little difficult to get off on this. Yeah, I want to be able to get it on and off the bucket. But I wanted it to fully be able to follow the terrain. We have a driveway that's 1/4 mile long. It is asphalt, not the best shape. Also, that's where we use the UHMW down here. Yeah, it's a ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. Yeah, the advantage is it doesn't score up the asphalt. Runs smoothly over it without a lot of chatter. The other thing I was real concerned with is that this would have a proper float mode. So the weight of this in float mode is resting on the ground, and so it could rise up and down on its own weight. That's a float mode. I had used my front end loader, trying to use it for scraping snow, and you're either way up too high or you're gouging into the asphalt, which isn't a good thing. So it's got the float mode, and then up above that I've got a spring that goes in, so then the spring engages after it's past float mode, so you can progressively add more downforce to it. Typically by that you'd tilt the bucket and that would engage the spring. Now a little bit of background. I looked for snowplows that would fit my tractor, but they're all like over $3,000 and they really didn't do exactly what I wanted. It's a lot of money, and I would have to take off my bucket. I would still have to make some customization to make it fit the bucket mounts on this. So decided, it was best to do something on my own. Found this Warn Pro Vantage plow system blade. 6-foot blade. Nice steel. Actually quite impressed at the thickness of the steel, the gauge of the steel. Nice plow. It weighs about 100 pounds for the blade. Just bought the blade itself. Was $300. It's not set up with pivots. Here's the mounting of the blade itself. I had to create the pivot mounts. And here's the bearings. There's actually dual bearings on that in a pivot mount to mount it in there. It did come with the springs and had feet on it. Feet on it if any of you are going over gravel. I'll just be using the feet to stabilize this or when resting it. Otherwise I'll lift the feet up when plowing. But I've got this thing pivot mounted through the bucket back at the back. You can see on the side, bolt sticking out the side, 3/4 inch bolt. So it comes through. I've got a first pivot back here, second pivot up here on this bar that goes all the way across. The bar has a 1/2 inch piece of rubber underneath it where it contacts the front end loader. So this bolt comes down to a captive nut down in there that floats within this piece, gives it a little bit of play. Now tightening this down causes this piece to go down and racks this side up slightly. Right here in the middle this is a shock absorber. I haven't finished the mounting of this. This will go up. There's a spring that goes around it, and it attaches up to. I'll have to make an attachment coming out of the receiver here that will attach to the spring. So it'll just slip in. The spring goes in it. I use this receiver quite a bit for moving my trailer or other items around here. I have a drop neck ball hitch that works just wonderfully for that. So when I did this work, I also reinforced the top of the bucket. 3/8 inch piece of steel, 1.5 inches wide. This round bar. Did some more welding on the front. Welded all these things in, so it's much more rigid. And put a 3/8 inch stock underneath where this mounts as well. So it's fully well supported, and added the hooks on the two ends. And went ahead and cleaned it up and painted it. It had been neglected. So the shock mounts here. Oh, and the point of the shock is that once you get past the float mode, now the shock's set up to where it'll allow a few inches of float. So this thing can raise up a little bit out of the bucket slightly before it engages the spring on the shock. So that allows you just the weight of the plow is on the snow digging in. But if I need more pressure, like there's ice to cut into, then I can tilt the bucket a little bit, and that starts engaging the spring. And the spring rate on this is 100 pounds per inch. So in other words, the first inch of compression of the spring, it's at 100 pounds. The second inch is 200 pounds. The third inch is 300 pounds. So in other words, I can control how much force I'm applying to get the ice off of the asphalt. I don't want to tear into things. So for example, here at the bottom of the blade, when it strikes something, it kicks in. I'm not much above the surface right now, but anyway, yeah, that kicks backwards. And the springs, it's pulling on the springs back there. And that pivots from this point right here. And there's ball bearings on this side and ball bearings on the other side with 3/4 inch bolt going in between it. The springs would actually just pull this thing all the way back till the springs are uncompressed if it weren't for, I've got this bolt in here, 1/2-inch bolt. I haven't locked it down yet. That's what this is, the lock. A locking nut. Got lock nuts on both sides. Anyhow, it is pressing on this rubber piece on this metal, which limits the extent. So that will allow me to adjust the tilt angle of this when it's sitting in normal position. And then when the bottom of the thing strikes something, then it'll tilt forward like that when it hits an obstruction. So that controls that angle. Tension of the springs is controlled by these adjustments on top. I've got them almost like maximum tension. Right now I found it was actually very difficult to get them pulled up here to get the tension to where I thought was right. And I may end up extending this up higher if I need more tension, but I'm going to see how it does with that. Yeah, you can see there more the angle adjustment, the skew angle on the blade. So you see the top of it, there's the nut where I adjust it. We've got locking nuts underneath it. It's got a slot the thing can ride in as this thing moves forward and backwards in the slot. The nut at the bottom in the little rectangular square tubing section floats, so it also accommodates a little movement side to side. Getting some last parts here of the snowmobile. Wouldn't that be nice? No. Of the snow plow, not a snowmobile. The snow plow that goes on the front of the tractor. Getting some final parts of this put together. Get the shock. I made this, here's the spring going on. I had to fix the cup at the bottom and then made this cup for the top, welded this up. Made the hole just large enough to fit over the flange here, just slightly larger. Then to allow this so that the flange will lock into this and it won't go anywhere. We've got two washer-like pieces that interlock. 1 and 2. So they interlock to seal up the hole, so to speak. So I'm going to get those put on there. Yeah, I suppose I was going to actually have to compress the spring to get these in there, but just the right length. I wanted a little play in it anyway before the shock engaged. Wouldn't have minded a little more play even, but then I would have had to extend these cups down. Okay, so the shock's attached now. Up at the top we got a couple of rubber bumpers in here, and here's the attachment with a hex in the top. Like hook in there and tighten this up, because remember, as you try to tighten this, it's going to try to move the whole shaft that goes down inside of the piston there, and you can't easily lock that up. So anyway, there's a hex there, and I have just enough space here to get an Allen in there. So anyway, bumpers, here's the thing that locks it in place, and the pivoting point down at the bottom. That's the end of this, and I can go back to get back to working on the top. Okay, it's the MAX Snow Plow, and added the top. It's been really nice. I don't like getting rained on, and also I need some light if I have to be plowing at night. The top is actually from a camper shell I got off of Craigslist for free. So I've cut the sides of it. It's a steel camper top. It has a nice dense foam sprayed in the inside of it, and to that I built a structure. See the structure in the back ties into the ROPS. It's got some little pivots there, allows me to take it off fairly easily. And I had to add this structure in the front here. Structure in the front here where it ties in. Replace the bar that was originally there. And made it so that I want to add a piece in the front here eventually. A tray out of some mesh steel. A tray that'll come out to a front, like a grill guard. This will allow me to throw some tools up on top to work on it. Things covered with all kinds of grinding dust and such, so we get a little warmer weather, I'll get this thing a good washing and waxing. Waxing a tractor. I guess that's kind of funny to some people, but yeah, I like to take care of it. Lite's put out a tremendous amount of light. It's just perfect for this application. So I actually have this on 3 switches. Barely see in there. Okay, and they're lighted switches. It was very difficult to find a place for that. 3 more lights in the back. So essentially the center ones here act like a headlight. So that's on one switch, and that switch actually engages a center light in the back. And we have these 2 outside lights on another switch and a reverse in the back. So it'll give us enough light for most things. Now you see the camper cover I used. I actually used the full extension of it because I wanted to also be covered back here with the bucket if I had to use the backhoe while it's raining. This thing plowed like a champ. Really worked great. Got out there, just kind of testing it, and our driveway's a little over a quarter mile long. Turns out the neighbors had got stuck at 2 cars. The first one, the Lexus, was stuck, and he's got a tractor too. He was out working it, so anyway, I was just kind of helping them out. While they were working with the car over at that end, and I was cleaning the backside so we'd have a clear path. Well, the lights were just wonderful. Okay, got all the snow plowing done this morning. Wasn't a ton of stuff. It's about 3-4 inches. Plow worked great. No problems. Went, can't see it from here, but the road goes a quarter mile out that way. So follow all the way road, even down the steep hill part. Beautiful out here. I think we'll get the back area. Have a sunny day. RH here, signing off.